So I'm going to start with you, Rana. Your character, Rana. Sorry, Josh. Can you tell me a bit about your character that you play? What attracted you to that part?
I play Rana, a police officer who works in Hull, and she is the best friend of Tony and Paula, who are two sisters, who are also the two female leads in this series. It was a comedy led by three working class women was a bit of a draw, and my character's really sexually empowering to play. I'd never played a character like that before, and it's quite rare for an Indian actress to be offered those kind of roles. So that was quite refreshing to kind of get my teeth stuck into something like that.
And where did you draw your inspiration from for the comedy?
Which is very different to me. For the comedy, at first, actually, I struggled with trying to access Rana, because initially I kept thinking, oh, well, she must have some inner vulnerability to want to, be so sexually drawn to men and, and have fun. And actually, when I kind of let that go, I just realised that's just what she enjoys, and she's just a forward-thinking woman and is really, really comfortable in her own skin, which at first I actually found quite difficult to identify with, because I'd always, thought, oh, she's got to have insecurities and there's got to be something to rally against. And actually, it's a line that I say in the end of the series, is actually, I just love who I am. So yeah, it's
quite inspirational to have a character that is just so comfortable in being who she is.
A female character,
funny.
Especially,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's quite rare actually.
Yeah.
A woman who just is so confident and happy with who she is and the life choices that she makes.
Because what you're talking about in terms of comedy and drama, comedy is a lot about instinct, so is drama, but generally speaking, you're always looking for the internal workings of your character, whereas comedy is a bit leaning into what's funny and going with your instincts. How did you find that, just leaning into your instincts, once you'd programmed your mind to go, this is who she is?
Well, we had an incredible director, Ian Fitzgibbons, who always said just play everything for the truth of it and don't play the comedy. Even in moments that felt really, really, really heightened, who'd make you go as far against it as you possibly could. And from that was hopefully born, across the cast, truthful performances. I mean, I've got loads of friends, and me included, who are quite over the top in real life anyway, just as who we are. And, there's moments of that I suppose I fed into the character, but it was always just played the truth of every situation.
Mm. And you've described Rana as being unapologetic before in the past. What elements of her did you relish the most?
The moments where she really just owns who. There is an episode where she does battle with a little bit of insecurity, because a man rejects her, and she's never had a man reject her before. And it kind of derails her, and she starts questioning who she is and what is it to do with me, and she goes on this spiritual awakening, and it's the guy that encourages her to go on a spiritual awakening and says, there's more to life than what you're striving for. And for a moment, she thinks that that's what she needs, and then she very quickly lets it go and says, no, actually, I'm very, very happy with who I am. I don't need to do that. And I really relished those moments.
Nice. Okay. Your relationship with the female leads, the sisters, Tony and Paula, were there lots of discussions of how Rana fitted in with the siblings, or was it just a easy fit?
That's a tricky question. I suppose, obviously, they had to build their relationship as who they were as sisters, and their backstory and how I fit into that was, we kind of just treated each other as three sisters, and that's how I saw them, through the eyes of Rana, as just two sisters, and we've been all raised together. We don't actually see their parents in this. The only parent we see in the whole series is my mum. Who is the only maternal figure, but is the least maternal woman, the least maternal character in the way she's written. And I suppose it was just navigating how the experiences we would have had as children growing up. We were really adamant that we weren't going to play these three women who were always stroking each other's hair and holding hands and being... We were just brutally honest with each other, because I can only speak for myself, but that's how me and my female and male friends are. this kind of, we just say what we think to each other. It's not all, you know, flowers and sunshine. It's actually very on the nose the way we talk to each other.
And that definitely comes across in those relationships, in those performances between you all. Did you know each other before?
I had worked with Leah very briefly at the Soho Theatre on a workshop piece, but Sinead Matthews was actually a bit of an idol of mine. When I was at drama school, Sinead was in all these fantastic plays across the West End. She was in a lot of Mike Leigh stuff, and I remember thinking, oh gosh, if I ever get a career like Sinead Matthews, I'll have some semblance of success. And I remember looking at the agent she was with, and you know, I've managed to sign with that agency, and it kind of came full circle then. Playing one of her best friends was, a pinch me moment.
It was brilliant, honestly. The chemistry between the three of you is great. There's that moment in the car when she's going into hospital, when Sinead's character's going into hospital, and she starts having a pop at you, and you're like, what did she say? Yeah. And then she goes, she's insulting you on her deathbed. But, and Hull Race is also based in Hull. A great sense of place. It's a real spirit, like it feels like another character in the show. Yeah. How important was that for you to represent?
It was important to get the accent right, for starters, because it's kind of has its own nuances, and they're very passionate about their accent and getting it right, and maybe we did and maybe we didn't, I'm not sure. But Hull does have its own identity. I have fond memories of Hull because I performed at the Hull Truck years ago there, and I had such an amazing experience. And actually our final day of shooting recently was on the docks, and it felt like most of the people of Hull came out to watch the scene. And it was brilliant because there's a minor stunt that's, without giving the story away, that one of the actors has to perform, and all of the people of Hull clapped at the end of it, which is amazing. So yeah, they kind of, I feel like they really got behind the show, and it was amazing for them to have a show that was set in Hull, because again, that's quite rare. Yeah,
very rare. So, but Stephen, you equally have a show that is based centrally in Bristol.
Yes.
Very important love letter to the city.
Yes, I also worked hard on the accent. And some people say I nailed it. But that's right, yes. No, well, similarly, mine was very much a love letter to Bristol, having grown up there, and I still have my family there. And as you said, you know, the idea of the city as another character for our show was very important. Bristol itself has a very strong personality. I don't know Hull very well, but Bristol certainly has a very distinct personality, and it's very visually interesting, and so we wanted to sort of exploit all that, tap into that.
You definitely tapped into it. It looks beautiful. And tell us a bit about your character. Describe Greg.
Well, you know, as you saw from that clip, he's a sort of socially awkward, oversized, glasses-wearing nerd. It was a real stretch for me. If anyone deserved a BAFTA, it's the, you know, because I really had to push myself to get there. You know, the fact I'm nominated is a huge compliment to the work I did. But no, joking aside, it began actually life as a film idea originally, right. And I wasn't particularly thinking that I would play that role. In fact, if anything, I was going to give myself a different role. But the terrible thing is when you have a kind of awkward, nerdy character in a show and I'm there anyway, it's a bit perverse for me not to play it, given that that's sort of in my wheelhouse. So I ended up sort of playing that character. And then regretting it afterwards, thinking I could have written myself a sort of suave James Bond-like guy, wears a tuxedo all the time. But so yes, I've ended up playing that character. But my hope is, and I think hopefully it's true of all of us here, is that the skill is to make it look easy. So you know, you're playing this kind of character and you've done that sort of character before, and it's like, well, sure, but you try it. You know what I mean? It's sort of it's not always as easy. I think to make it look hopefully as easy as it looks, if that makes sense.
Well, you definitely make it look easy.
Oh, well, thank you.
So you have written it. You were also exec producer of The Outlaws?
That's right, yes.
So I know you've previously written and directed yourself.
Yes.
How different was it performing without you doing your own direction?
Well, I directed some of the first series, and then this second series was different directors. And how difficult is it? Well, you know, you like to think that by the time you've got to the set, Particularly if you've written as well, a lot of the questions that a director has been answered, and I try very hard on any project to not meddle with the director, and give thoughts, because I direct myself as well. Obviously I do, and I have thoughts here and there, but I try not to interfere as best I can, because I want to be able to just focus on that performance, in that moment.
And with your performance, generally in comedy, you just go with whatever comes out first, or are you quite rehearsed? Are you quite...
No, I think as time's gone on, I've got more and more rehearsed. And what I mean by that is prepared, I think.
Yeah, right.
I think when I was younger, I think the illusion that good comedians and good performers give is that they're being spontaneous. And as you do it more, and as you read more about your heroes, people like Eric Morecambe, Tony Hancock, they rehearsed relentlessly to then make it look easy. And similarly in stand-up, similarly in all kinds of environments. And I think now talk shows even, I'll prepare very carefully in order to then have the freedom to be playful or to try something different on the day. But I very rarely would turn up without knowing the lines very well and thinking about any physical action and being precise about the physicality. And then if you want to then kind of play around with that, you've got that good basis to work from. And I've worked with a lot of other really good comedy performers who generally apply the same kind of rules,
Practice.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of that, there's a great moment in your show where the lady that we've just seen on the clip that he sees at a club, and Greg stands up into that light shade.
Yes.
The physicality of that and the awkwardness of it is brilliant. How rehearsed is that moment?
Well, for those of you that haven't seen it, yes, I stand up in an effort to impress the lady you saw, and I sort of find myself embroiled in a lamp, in a kind of chandelier lampshade, and it obviously takes me an inordinate amount of time to disentangle myself from it. And some people said to me, well, that would never happen. And I'm saying, what are you talking about? That would never happen. That sort of thing's happened to me constantly, not just lampshades, but I remember I was once at a party and I was talking to a woman. This was one of my student days, and I thought I was doing quite well, and I sort of, I was being kind of smooth, and she said, "Steve, you're on fire." I said, "Thanks very much." and she said, "No, you are on fire." And the sleeve of my polyester shirt had got caught on the tea light that was on the mantelpiece, and my sleeve was up in flames. And I'm not at my most attractive when I'm screaming, "For God's sake, put it out, woman!" Without wishing to go into it in detail, I was once at a big showbiz party in Los Angeles. Yeah, you heard me. And to cut a long story short, I went for some breath of fresh air and found myself falling backwards through a 6-foot plate glass window that smashed in its entirety. I know.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, imagine how I
Wow.
felt. And looking back into the party, and everything went quiet. People just staring at me. Lots of famous faces. You don't know what to do in that moment, do you? Do you just go ta-da and then leave? But so walking into a chandelier is nothing compared with some of my real experiences. But yes, no, like you said, to go back to that, yes. Again, I made sure I went there, and I'm not even joking. I tried on the chandelier beforehand, so that they could make sure that I could slot into it nicely, and really work the kind of physicality of it, and make sure your shoulders can get caught in the right way, and there's enough kind of beaded elements to sort of rattle around, and really work out the kind of the shtick of it, so that when you get to the set, you can just get going.
And with the physicality of that, was that with your other director, co-director,
Exactly.
Mainly?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or do you just stare in the mirror, going, "Does this work?"
No, I work with him, and obviously I'm asking them, does it funnier if I'm here and if I turn here? And we discuss how it should be shot, and is it funnier as a wide or as a tight? So all of that stuff has so much impact. The way the chandelier looks, and how easy is it for you to pop up into it, and did the audience see it coming? Have you planted it there, but without tipping it, that's going to happen? All those things become part of the discussion.
It's a brilliant scene, and very, very funny. So you're no stranger to the multi-hyphenated universe at all. What we have got now, I might have, how do you separate those things out? All of your different roles. When you're on set, you've got everyone calling at you, pulling at you. Or are you quite disciplined that when you're on the set, you are a performer, you're not got your other hats on?
No, I think I'm always wearing the other hats, but again, preparation in all those capacities. You know, have worked with the script from the beginning to the moment you start filming. So I feel like I know the script very well. I have a sort of encyclopedic knowledge of it, not just my character, but all of the characters. So I feel like I know how everything slots together. If I'm directing, I'll have prepared that. If I'm not, you know, I'll have worked with the director and discussed things with them. And I also find that the writing process sort of never stops in a way. So I might make suggestions on the day. I might ask the actors to try something different. And even today I was running lines, funnily enough, for something. And even as I was rehearsing the lines, I was finding, you know, oh, we can improve that, or we can change this, or that's got a better rhythm. So, and even if I'm doing a project that's not written by me and that's with another director, I would never just show up and change the lines, but I might try and speak to them beforehand or to the producers or whatever and say, can I try a version like this? Or so to me, you know, it's an always refining process,
right.
You know, every step.
Okay. And Outlaws has been described as a comedy thriller.
Yes.
And again, we're crossing over so many genres all the time with comedy. Nothing seems to be a straight comedy anymore. Why was it more thriller, less drama? Because I think there's quite a lot of drama in Outlaws.
I would think of it as a comedy drama, perhaps more than a thriller, but with thriller aspects in it. But like you say, now it's sort of those genres have broken down a lot more, haven't they? And that there's sort of a lot more fluidity between all those sort of things. And so to me, I like the idea that a comedy can be funny in one scene and then kind of heartbreaking or thrilling in the next, and that there are sort of no rules in a sense, as long as there's a sort of hopefully a consistency of tone, or you believe you're still in that universe that you've set up. Because again, for me, life, that's what life is, you know, is 1 minute, you know, you're having fun at a party, and the next minute you've walked through a window, you know. And it's funny in retrospect, but at the time, you'd be surprised, it's quite embarrassing.
So, any top tips to any performers out there in terms of comedy? Like, where's the best place for, like, is it just, are you born with comedy in you? Are you always funny? Do you just develop it as you get older?
Well, I think it's quite hard to teach someone to be funny. That would be my impulse. I've always been in that world and been interested in that world, so it feels very comfortable to me. And I think, you know, you can find loads of brilliant comic performers who aren't necessarily from a comedy background or a stand-up background. They're still very good at it. But my suspicion is they have an innate sense of how to deliver a funny line or to deliver it in an amusing way. I think that one of the difficulties with comedy is that sometimes there's only one way to say the line to make it funny. And not always true of drama. I think sometimes drama, you can just approach a line, you know, in a different way, and it still has a different, it still is impactful. Sometimes with comedy, not always, but sometimes there's only one way of doing it. And sometimes as a writer, as a director, when I can see the actors not delivering it in a way that's going to make it funny, it's very hard to help them there, you know. And so I guess sometimes you're just like, well, I guess that line's not getting a laugh, you know. But I'm always reminded of, I think it was Mike Nichols, the great writer-director and film director, who said after a good take, he would always say, okay, let's do it again, but faster. And I think there's a lot to be said for speed with comedy, speed and precision. I think sometimes I've noticed, particularly with some actors I've worked with, they're very loose with the dialogue. They're quite sort of, they're not word precise. They're quite kind of jazzy with it, which works sometimes, but often with comedy, it's like, no, don't add extra words, because we've really worked hard to make this line sing, you know. So you're kind of added or well. You might think it's adding naturalism, but it might just be making it flabby as a line, and you lose the laugh, you know.
Great, thank you very much. Very useful. Which brings us over to Lenny. So I promised we weren't going to go dark straight away, but the clip that was shown, there is a dead cat involved.
Yes.
So how did you find playing Lenny? What was your most exciting thing about getting the part of Lenny?
Well, he was very, he's a hard character, I think, because I think I wanted to try and play, because I know he sort of has psychopathic tendencies, in a way. I mean, to be fair, not any normal kid would shove a cat in a washing machine. So I think kind of playing that sort of normal kid, but I think sort of playing him more mature, because I think that's what sort of a psychopath. They're a bit more clever, which is dangerous. But yeah, I love playing him. I think he was incredible.
I'm sorry, I called your character Lenny and not
That's
Ollie.
fine. That's fine. Yeah, I'm not psycho. Ollie is.
So he does have a darker side.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
How did you tap into that darker side? How method were you over the cat is what I want to know.
Well, do you know what was good? I'm not a big fan of cats. So if it was a dog, I might have found it harder. But you know what? No. I mean, the thing is, I think it was a bit like I'm not a big fan of cats. It's like, oh, okay then. Not that I do it, but it was just a bit easier. But I remember going to set and I'd be like, it's right. And then this cat, it was the cutest thing ever. And I don't know, I just, why are you? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it was I think, yeah, I don't know how I just sort of rolled with it, I think.
Just rolled with it.
Yeah.
So, in terms of Ollie, what did you want the audience to feel about him and his character?
I think the great thing with the show in general, I mean, every character, at one point in the show you hate them, and then the next minute you sort of feel sorry for them. So I think, so the first bit when you realise Ollie has actually killed this cat, but then in the next episode it sort of shows why, and the sort of you know, like it's the reasoning behind it, the reasoning behind him doing what he does, and I think he has had a sort of complicated life. I think especially being a young kid, like seeing all different. It's just, yeah, I think it was a tricky upbringing.
So, you're talking about darker sides, comedy, and rolling with it, and
Yeah.
Stephen's talking about being prepared. You did quite a lot of improvising in this show, didn't you?
Well, I think Daisy was a big improver anyway. Yeah, so like on the audition email, it sort of said like there will be a lot of improv involved, so it's sort of getting used to that. So we were sort of prepared. Like we had rehearsals in terms of like making it look more natural. So it was like a chemistry rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to know Daisy a bit. I got to know Dustin, who plays Dan. I got to know Ruben, who plays Harry, my friend. So yeah, we were prepared that way. But when we were on set, yeah, I think there isn't. To be honest, I don't think there's one scene that hasn't had like a tiny bit of improv at least. Whether that being like going off script a bit, or yeah, anything.
And how confident and comfortable were you in those moments of finding the funny? Were you just rolling with it?
Yeah, well, yeah. At first, it was tricky because it was different. But I think once I got into it, I really enjoyed that type of comedy. I loved it. It was great.
So, and tell us a bit about Ollie's relationships with the other members of the cast. You talked about Dustin.
Yeah, so I think he sort of he's close to everyone. I think, like Dan, obviously his best friend, Harry. But I think he's the closest with his mum, but it's the weakest relationship. I think he's like the parent.
Yes.
He's hurrying up his mum to get him to school while she wants to watch trash telly. So yeah, things like that. And I think Nick sort of sees Ollie as he's like the one thing that holds her together, I think. And then I think when sort of she finds out about the cat, I think that's when she's sort of like, well, now I've got nothing. And then it all sort of unravels. It goes a bit dark.
And finding comedy out of darkness, like Stephen said,
Yeah.
does that feel like the right balance for you in terms of the darkness of that show and the comedy? Because there's a lot, you know, it is very funny, but it is very dark and light. It really does undercut.
I think in the weirdest way, I think it really does work together, darkness. But I wouldn't even call it like I don't even think it is dark comedy. It just literally is, it's comedy, and then you've got dark sides, but like, I can't explain, but yeah, I think it worked well, and it was actually, when I saw the show, it was a lot darker than I thought. I think it was more dark than funny sometimes. It was like, oh. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
So, and when you were reading the scripts, obviously the language where Mum says you quite enjoyed saying that word.
Yeah.
How liberating was it for you?
Oh, it was great. Well, I remember...
I'm not encouraging him to swear, I'm just
No.
saying.
But I remember getting there that morning, and they always gave, they give you like sides. So like you got the scripts on there, and because I was a kid, they had to they highlight all the swear words out. And I remember that day reading through, and my one was highlighted out, and I was like, what? I can't say it. But no, I did. I get to say it, so so that was good.
And what are your favourite scenes from the show?
I think in terms of filming, I enjoyed the birthday scene at my birthday party because it was literally kids going mad. I remember my mum got a acting debut, and she was in the background in the party. And there was this kid who was running around with an inflatable, and it went poof right across her head. And my mum went, oh, like she got it. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed
Did you tell him to do it?
Yes. No, but I remember as well. So there's also the scene where that night, well, on like my birthday night, they all doing a Chinese, and I remember just before we were about to film, Daisy said, "How about you stack prawn crackers on my head, like whilst I'm sleeping?" And like that was part of the improv. Like it's just really weird and random, and then I think also, oh yeah, I shoved a spoon roll in her mouth while she was sleeping. It was just things like that. Like I love the silliness of it.
And have you always been a lover of comedy?
I love comedy, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I like if we ever have a film night, I always want to watch a comedy film. I think I like having the thought of making someone laugh. I think it's a good feeling.
It's a good skill to have.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
It's a good skill to have. So, talking to all of you about literally striking the balance between comedy and drama, how did you find that, Taj?
In terms of hull raisers?
In Hull Raisers, yeah.
Yeah, well, we actually got to do a bit of both. So it was honouring the line as is written, don't change it. And then, you know, as Lenny got to do a lot of improv, which is super fun, but can also be, I don't know if you found, sometimes really nerve-wracking because everyone's improving really well. And I'm stood there thinking, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to get involved.
You want to be funny.
And you try.
Not, it's a bit awkward.
It's so awkward. And there was a few moments where I tried to improv a line through nerves and it just fell flat and it was like, and cut. And I was like, oh, please don't include that. And then you just go away. And then all the funny lines that I wish I had said came to me when I was in my hotel room in bed the next day. But yeah, I got to do a bit of both.
Right.
Can I just say, I don't want people to think that, you know, there's actually no freedom on my set. If you're not perfect, you're thrown out of the set. I guess what I mean is, when you're showing up,
yes.
know the line as written.
Yeah.
And then we
Then
can
you
relax
can
and
play
play
with it.
around it afterwards. And but also, with improv, I think the danger sometimes with improvisation on set is, you know, you make the crew laugh because they've already seen the line that you was scripted 3 times, and you make the crew laugh, and then that gets a laugh, and then you add a bit more, or you exaggerate a bit more. And listen, I'm guilty. I love, of course, you're kidding me. I love that. And now you've done sort of 8 takes, and it's got sillier and weirder and funnier, and everyone's laughing. And that's not what makes it in the editing room. No. Because once you see it in context, you go, what on earth are we talking about at this point? And so I think that's what's the danger with improv is if you don't cover yourself with a kind of scripted version, it can kind of, you know, it can get a little out of hand, you know. Yep. But of course, there's so much, you know, you gain from keeping it loose and adding improv lines. And if you have talented performers that can do it, it's a godsend, absolute godsend, yeah.
Right. It absolutely is. Thank you. I'm going to open this up to the floor, I think. Thank you, everyone, for...
Congratulations, all 3 of you. on your nomination. The question is mainly for Taj. Obviously, I don't know whether anyone else is aware, but I think you're the first Indian actress to be nominated for this award. How do you feel about that?
Thank you. It's kind of a moment of pride to represent, obviously, you know, my South Asian sisters. And then also, oh gosh, it's taken so long for this to happen because there's been so many amazing Indian actresses who were funny before me. You know, my hero is Meera Syal, who's got the BAFTA Fellowship, and, you know, and all the actors that were in Goodness Gracious Me years and years and years ago. So it's kind of a bittersweet moment, but I feel obviously incredibly proud to represent, and I had lots of lovely female Indian actresses who messaged me and said, you know, wow, and thank you for us, and hopefully it paves the way. But yeah, it was kind of weird it's taken so long.
Can someone check if I'm the first Bristolian?
We're checking. There's a question there.
Congratulations. Stephen, my question is about, you know, now that you've established yourself in the industry with things like Fighting With My Family and this, I mean, do you still find it challenging to get things commissioned? I mean, what challenges do you find if you've got an idea? I mean, same to you, Taj. I mean, if you're looking to get things commissioned on television, I mean, what are the challenges that you face?
Well, I think there's no easy ride anymore. Yeah, I think, like you say, even though I'm sort of fairly well established, and it's still, you know, it's still a conversation you have to have with you know, people, and I think even more so now as kind of you know, the belt is getting tightened, you know, in terms of what people can spend and afford, and you know, when I first started, the idea of needing a kind of money from an outside company, or in the case of Outlaws, you know, it's the BBC with Amazon. You know, we made The Office, it was just the BBC, and it was a relatively cheap show, but never a discussion about it needing money from elsewhere. Whereas now, you know, with a show like ours, it's fairly expensive, and you need to get money from elsewhere. So now you're trying to persuade two different groups of people, in this case, one side of the Atlantic and the other. You know, and so that becomes an added hurdle, and they've each got different, you know, agendas about what they want and what they're looking for. So, no, there's absolutely no kind of guaranteed meal ticket. No, not for me or for anyone else, I don't think. Yeah. Sorry to be so depressing. Honestly, I thought I could just breeze in anywhere, just put my feet on the desk, but nothing. No.
Taj, do you pitch?
Yeah, well, I mean, I write movies, so and for me it was a different process. I actually, the company that I work for now, I'm actually writing with Fable Pictures and the BFI, and they're actually my third company. I was with two companies prior to that, and it was more of a feeling of just the previous companies, it just wasn't working out, and so in my head, and which I'm sure you're aware, you think you're going to have it on in a year or two, and then 5 to 6 years down the line, you're on your third company, and only then does it start to feel right. You know, and I miss deadlines because I'm obviously filming as an actress, but it is a process. But in terms of telecommissioning, I'm not sure. I mean, I have amazing meetings and stuff like that, and they you know, promise you so many things, but I imagine it's
We've all had good meetings.
Yeah, we're always on a hope and a prayer. So I don't know. I'm still very new to it, and film is slightly, I imagine, I'm speaking from a lot of inexperience here, I imagine it's slightly different because, you know, you could make an indie on a shoestring and with the smaller company. So for me, I'm great to hear you say how hard it's going to be for me.
No, I think it's tough in film and everything as well. Yeah,
okay.
Unfortunately,
It's
I think it's hard. And I've increasingly heard even very seasoned people saying, you know, they need to go in with a package. Here's the director, here's the actor, here's the script, you know. And,
Yeah, it is tough. No one wants to let go of any money.
No.
That's right.
Yeah.
Lenny, have you been pitching anything recently?
Well, no,
Not yet, not yet.
Not yet, no, I hope so. That'd be cool.
Any more questions? There.
I can just shout.
There you go, there's a mic there.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So obviously I like doing comedy, but I just want to know how, because obviously you guys like all play different kind of comedy roles. So how do you always like find the truth? Because obviously you're talking about a yeast infection. It's just a bit random. It's like, it's very Chandler Bing like. if you get me. So I just want to know, like, how do you guys always find truth?
Well, you know, I'm lucky that everything I've done generally, there's always some reality to it. Certainly the stuff I've written myself, you know, it's not that kind of conversation is not wildly different from something I might have said in an effort to sort of be, you know, charming, misguidedly charming, you know, when I was 18 or 19 or something, not really knowing how to, you know, so even if the words are kind of absurd, that sensibility of not knowing what to say in a social situation, right, is quite common, I think, to a lot of people. And so that's the truth that I would be playing there or in any of those things. And I think in a sense, when you play the truth, it's not necessarily the truth of the scene, because that might be absurd, but the truth of the emotion of the scene, in terms of your character, seems to me the only guiding light you can have there, you know. So, you know, I did this from Jojo Rabbit, where I'm playing a Nazi, which is, you know, relatively distant from my real life experience, thankfully. So, you know, I'm not drawing on any kind of real experience there, but what you are playing in that instance is the kind of the little man who's got a lot of authority, and is kind of now, you know, and he's been, you know, in an ugly and terrifying way, but he's a sort of bureaucrat who thinks he's the guy, he's the guy, and so he can come into a house and just be slightly kind of tyrannical, and he knows no one's going to question anything he says, and so you're playing that as a sort of little middle management bureaucrat that you could find working in an office somewhere. So you know what I mean? So that's the truth of that, even if the circumstances are very different. So I don't know if that's true of what these guys have felt, but that's certainly how I would approach those sorts of things.
But I mean, you played a psychopath, so.
I did, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the thing is, I'm like, because obviously I've not written anything. Like I don't have to come up with all the random things. So, for me, it's just written there. So, yeah, I'm alright with that.
So, and you just play it for the truth and not finding the funny. You literally just do what Stephen's just said.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but I love it. Yeah.
I think there's power in that, actually, just really trusting the director. I mean, my note is always just do less, Taj. I mean, and I have battles with Ian of how I really think I have prepared to do the scene, and sometimes you'll get on there and the director wants you to do it the complete opposite way, and actually that can be quite hard because you're so set in the way that you thought it was going to be, and I will go away feeling very insecure after the take where they're like, yeah, great, bought it, because in my head I think it's horrible because it's so not how I wanted to play it. But you really have to sometimes, well, always trust the director's instinct, and you know, more times than not, the director will let you have the opportunity to have your own take as well, which is okay. Just do what you want to do. I've got what I want. You do what you want to do. And in terms of the truth of it, if the dialogue feels random and kind of totally out there, it's finding the nuance, like what you said. I've never, in my personal life, I wouldn't say as I'm confident, as empowered as my character was, but there have been times that I felt confident. And I just kind of think of those times where did I feel the most confident in that moment, and can I bring that essence to this scene and kind of almost forget the words of what you're saying.
But I think you make an interesting point about trying to be funny, because I think there are occasions where, you know, that isn't necessary. And so that's a tricky balance, because sometimes, like you say, doing very little will sell the joke, and other times you do need to get it across in a different way. And I think sometimes that's about the tone of the show, right? You know, if you think about sketch comedy, if you think about Saturday Night Live or a lot of British sketch comedy, you know, that it needs to be kind of overplayed because that's part of the kind of nature of the show, and it almost invites that. You think of someone like Will Ferrell, you know, a lot of his performances are madly over the top, but that's the joy of them, you know. So I think it's about sort of figuring out what's the tone of the piece, and I think that's a good conversation to have with directors and producers, writers. What do you want this to feel like? You know, what do you want? Do you want it to feel natural and real? Do you want it to be kind of comically absurd? Figuring that tone out, I think, as a performer is very important.
Just touching on that really quickly, you can also, in some situations, in terms of hall raises, we have elements of all of that. We have elements of the absurd and, you know, crazy over-the-top situations, because we've all, as you've given us examples, have been in those situations. And then some episodes, it's just not that. It's you know, you could have elements of all of it across the whole series. It just depends on what the narrative is in that particular scene and episode.
It is important to have those conversations with the director and the writer and find out the truth. That's where the truth is coming from, that conversation.
Well, we had an actor come in to audition for The Office once on the second series, and he clearly had never seen the show because he came into audition and he said, guys, can I try something? And we're like, okay. And he sort of turned around and he put on a pair of like comedy glasses and he's like, all right, and starts playing this like wacky character. And
I think I've worked with that actor.
Yes. And we were just sort of, what do you do here? Because you just need to be polite and go, all right, thanks, Clive. I've changed his name. But you know, so that's.
We'll
but
call
what was
you.
weird to me there was, well, you've seen the show. You know the tone of the show. It was an odd.
It's interesting what comedy does to people.
Right,
People
right.
do go, we have to do this and be big and huge, rather than actually let's go. Sometimes you go small, just play it straight, and
Right.
that's
Well,
where
that
the
is a
funny
lesson
is
in
the word.
itself if you are auditioning to watch a bit of the show
Watch a
before
bit
you
of the show.
audition.
if it's been made already, yeah, definitely.
Any more questions? Yep, this guy in the third row, please. There's a mic coming towards you.
First of all, Stephen, I just wanted to say that your voice performance as Wheatley in Portal 2 is one of the reasons I want to go into acting.
Oh wow, great!
And,
Thank you so much.
In some of my lowest moments, it's helped me through a lot. So I just
Great.
wanted to say thank you for that first.
Thank you very much.
But my question was actually for all of you: how hard do you find it to keep a straight face? Have you gotten better with it? If it's like a really good bit, have you improved through time, or do you still sometimes have moments? And is there a specific memory where you just couldn't hold it in, and it's broken the whole scene?
Oh, I still no. I mean, once I start laughing, I'm done for. I'm absolutely done for. There's no way back. You may as well call lunch. I can't. There's no trick I've found effective. Once you get the giggles, there's no way that the line that the person's saying isn't going to be funny. They can step out of the room. They could shout the room from another. That would just be funny in itself. Well, now you're shouting the room from next door. That's just absurd. You can you can try all kinds of things, and there's nothing. It's like a hysteria that you can't. It's like the hiccups. You can't just say, I'm not going to hiccup anymore, right? It's just, you have to write it out. And yeah, I've never found a methodology to stop that. And often it's not necessarily even the scene itself being funny. It's someone does the delivery of a line in a particular way that just catches you, or you just suddenly realize the absurdity of what's happening, you know. We had a scene in Extras, which I'm not going to mention in detail because we've got younger people here. But we had a sort of pen with a girl's clothes fall off, and there was various men finding that very erotic. And there's no way where you can, when you suddenly go, what are we doing?
I know.
What is going
Actors
on?
are weird.
Yeah, that now the whole idea is funny, and you're done for. You're done for. Yep.
Yeah. I think, yeah, like Stephen said, like it's the way like someone can deliver a line, or even like if you just mess up a line, if you stumble, and then that line will be funny over and over, even if they get it perfect, which isn't ideal. But yeah, I'm the worst for keeping a straight face. Yeah, it's not good.
It's hard.
Because the more you try to keep a straight face, the worse it gets. It's like when you're at school and you get told
Contagious.
off and you're with your mate and then you clock each other's face and then you
And it
laugh.
ripples around the
And
around
the worst
room.
thing is, but then when the director tells you off, because that, you know, which we've had on our set, it gets to 4 o'clock and by 4 o'clock everyone's just delirious and everyone just wants to laugh. And then when you get shouted at for being too noisy, it just makes everyone even worse. You just want to be even more raucous and time's ticking.
But I've had it in real life. When I was working with Ricky Gervais one time, we went to hire an office, and we got shown round, and we spoke to this guy. We just knew he was Brian, and we'd been shown round, and we sat there to just talk about, you know, the renting the office. And he said, "Well, here's my card," and he gave us his business card, and we both looked at it at the same time, and his name was Brian Squelch. Squelch as a last name. And we were just, both of us just went, because we both knew what the other person was thinking. And Ricky was gripping my leg under the table like that. And we're like, thanks, Brian. Yeah, well, we'll definitely give you a call. Didn't rent the office. Couldn't rent the office because we didn't want to see Brian again. Yeah.
Keeping it professional. Any more questions? Just there in the green top. Yeah.
This one's for Taj. Firstly, congratulations, all of you. I really enjoyed Rana in Hellraisers, particularly because, as you said, she's unapologetic, she's freedom personified, and especially for me, as an Indian, from an Indian heritage, it's refreshing to see those kinds of roles being played on mainstream. And you've also done Memory. I watched Memory as well, which is quite action-packed. So my question is, what sort of roles do you see yourself doing in the near future? Is there something ideal that you'd like to play? For example, a psychopath, that'd be quite cool. But yeah, what would you see yourself doing?
I'd love to play a villain in something. I think those kind of characters are so much more interesting to play. Because this is so, well, I hope, so far removed from who I am. But yeah, just more characters that are so not the cliche and are empowering and different to what, you know, some Asian actors get offered. And sometimes you have to say no to a lot of stuff to get that one amazing script. You're like, yes, this is, you know, this is so more truthful to the life that I've experienced, because obviously, you know, we're humans, we all have a shared experience in terms of who we are. Obviously we have different cultures, but in terms of the human experience, we all have similarities in that aspect. And obviously I can only speak from being an Indian actress, and it's striving to have those kind of scripts and those characters where you're like, okay, yes, I can play this and forget about all the other kind of cliches on top of that. But it's so funny because before Hellraisers, I was like, I'm not doing any more comedy again. I've done so much comedy. And then the script came to me, and it was just, I couldn't say no.
Any more questions? There's a gentleman next to you, and then we'll come to you afterwards. Behind, yeah.
That's okay. The shoot can obviously be kind of a pressurized environment. The clock is ticking. There's loads of people, and they're looking to you to deliver. I want to ask you all kind of what you need from the environment and how you keep yourself, keep that pressure away from you enough for you to perform, for you to be playful, for you to deliver what you need to deliver, and separate yourself from the pressure of the shoot.
I think it's the people around you. I think if you've got, usually, to be honest, the pressure, it would be from other people. But I think if you have that person around you that's always bubbly, fun, whatever, it just takes your mind off of it, and I think it makes the performance itself a lot easier, and just enjoyable in general.
Well, I sometimes think there's a strange division sometimes between the performers and the director. And there's sometimes I'm surprised when the director won't let the actors know what the shot is. Like this is somehow their territory, and they're not going to share that with the actor, because it seems to me that it's a team effort. I don't understand that. So if you're doing a big wide, why am I giving you 110%? You know, not because you shouldn't give 110%, but because you might need to save your energy for when it's your close-up, because there's only so much you can deliver during a working day, you know. And so the idea of just give us your performance and we'll worry about the frames, it's like, well, no, what are you talking about? But equally, if the camera's in here, I'm going to give a different performance than if it's wide, because I'm going to be aware that I'm going to be much bigger in the screen, and I can do more in that. I can deliver something different. So I find that very confusing. And so to me, that all goes to the environment, the working environment, feeling secure, feeling collaborative, the directors and the producers, everyone else making everyone feel like it's a collaborative, safe environment. And by safe, I mean that you can try something and it might not work, and you're not going to be laughed at or judged or scoffed, because I think that's another vital factor, particularly with comedy. You know, you want to be able to try something, and if it doesn't land, it doesn't land. And I think people can feel self-conscious, you know, particularly if they're newer to the game. You know, well, I don't want to embarrass myself. And even older actors as well. So for me, it's important to try and create that environment, particularly if people are working with more seasoned names. that perhaps can make them feel a bit intimidated or whatever. So trying to make that environment is very important. But like you say, the pressures of time, it's not always easy to do.
It's not always that easy. Taj?
It's a really interesting point you raise about the shots and stuff like that, because the more experienced I've got at being on a set, the more confidence I've built to ask the director or the DOP, the cinematographer. I'll just go, where in are we? How wide are we going close? And I do sometimes ask to see a bit, if we've got time, a bit of the shot back, because sometimes in my head I'm not landing the performance, and I can't quite get the note of what's being given to me. So sometimes I just find it easy to just look at what I'm doing, and then I can just see what I'm doing, and then I just know to go back. That's a luxury, I've got to say, on set, because TV moves so quick. And like you said, there is a bit of sometimes of you're not allowed to even look at it back, even though it's your face and your performance. There's a bit of a no, you can't look at that. And so I suppose the more experienced I've got, the more confident I've become in asking for that. I would say I'm quite disciplined on set anyway. I'm very focused, but there are times where you need to decompress and just have a laugh. And just learning the crew's names, just getting on set, learning everyone's names and having a good rapport with everyone. I really like to make sure everyone feels included, because you are all making it together, and I don't like there to be any kind of hierarchy of we're the actors and you're the crew. I hate that kind of stuff, because they can also make it difficult for you, and you don't want to. You just make it easy for each other, and you want to come on and have a bit of banter with everyone, because there can be really long hours. Sometimes you're shooting night shoots or whatever, and you're in it together.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I will just say, and I'm only half joking, it's only TV, guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not life and death, and I think there is, you can get hung up on the kind of on that stuff, and it's like, let's just pull back for a second, This is supposed to be fun. We got into this game to not do a real job of work.
Yeah.
So why are we taking it so seriously?
Exactly. Best advice. Right, last question. This gentleman here with the orange jacket on.
This one's for Stephen. I know you're doing a lot more stand-up at the moment, and presumably working on the Outlaws Series 3. So just wondering if you can tell me, what that process is like, and if kind of one helps the other comedically.
Yes, it does. I think. Yes, I think with stand-up, it puts you back in touch with an audience in a very direct way, and it reminds you of how to make people laugh in a very immediate sense. And I think when you're writing comedy, and you move away from that and you're squirreled away in your room, you're working on theory, and it's with stand-up, it's not theory anymore. It's like you can theorize all you like, but you only know if it's funny if you're in front of an audience. And so I think it just helps feed back into writing in terms of being concise, in terms of expressing your idea in a clear way, and making sure the audience isn't stupid, but you need to give them enough information to make them laugh, right? And things like that, which I know seem obvious to us, but they're easy to kind of forget when you're in the weeds of writing a script. So I do find they feed back on themselves. And I wish I had time to do more stand-up, because it's always instructive, but it's just so time-consuming. And I find, if you ask me to write a screenplay, I get to work and I can knock that out. But to build up an hour and a half of stand-up takes me forever, because it doesn't matter how much I think this is going to be dynamite. You get out in front of an audience and they just stare at you like, what are you talking about, you maniac? And you can't go, I got 3 BAFTAs here, what's going on? It doesn't mean anything. If it's not funny, it's not funny. So, so it's, I wish I could, but it's a bit like going to the gym. It's so easy to not do stand-up. You know what I mean? It's just so easy to stay at home. But I am enjoying it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to thank you all very much and wish you the best of luck, and congratulations again on your nomination.